everybody. I'm Max, and today I'll just be talking a little bit about my life and kind of what I've had to go through with the conditions I have. So, a little bit about me, a little bit of an introduction. I've got ASD, which is Asperger's Spectrum Disorder. I've got OCD. I've got ADHD. And I've got epilepsy. So the doctor loves me, basically. I think he just kept trying to give me conditions until he couldn't think of any others. But throughout life, obviously, I've had my struggles through coping with these disabilities, and obviously growing up against other people and their kind of perception of it has been quite difficult as well. So a little bit more about me is I work full-time in IT. I do YouTube, so I've been on YouTube for probably about 10 years now. I still haven't made it, but still trying, still determined. And the main thing I do with YouTube now is raising an awareness for Asperger's and all my other conditions, just so people have got kind of somewhere to go to, and they can feel that someone's listening and someone is like them, I suppose, and have that connection with them. I also do acting, so I'll get more into that a little bit later, but I've been on things like Holby City, I've been on Doctors, I've done adverts for Santander and Ford, and I'm also ambassador for the National Autistic Society. So a couple of years back they was looking for a autistic actor for one of their adverts, and I then auditioned for the role. And luckily I got it, and I've been able to work with them, and that was centred around their employment campaign that they was doing, which at the moment is only 16% of people with Asperger's and autism in full-time work, and that hasn't changed for 10 years. So it's something that I continuously try and combat, really, and try and help other people get into employment. And then every year since 4 years ago, I set my goal that I do an event for charity every year. So the first year I done a skydive because I thought start big, right? Big mistake. Didn't like it, hated the skydive, but raised money for the first year for Make-A-Wish Foundation. The second year I done an abseil, and that was for the National Autistic Society. Third year I done a 15k marathon. Which was horrible. That was worse than the skydive. So, but it's encouraged me to lose weight, I suppose. So, ups and downs. And this year I'll be doing a zip line in Wales. It's like the fastest, highest zip line. It's called Velocity, and this is going towards the British Heart Foundation and Roy Castle, who deal with lung cancer research. So. Yeah, I try and do what I can. I try and make myself so busy, but then I still find myself not busy, if that makes sense. So then I'm trying to cram whatever I can. So yeah, I'm getting there though. So a little bit about me at primary school. So that was me at primary school. I don't know why I liked the backwards head cap, but it's something I thought, did anyone watch Recess? Because I loved Recess. So I thought I'd look a bit like TJ and just go with it. So yeah, that was me. Not the best of looks. You can see a lot of people probably looking at that kid thinking, he's a bit odd, he's a bit weird. But that's what I liked wearing. So I carried on. But some of the topics I'll cover is relationship with peers, relationship with teachers, things that helped and things that didn't. So I couldn't talk till I was 6, which was quite difficult because, you're trying to make friends. One example was I loved playing football, and but the problem was I didn't know how to play football. So when I say I love to play football, everyone would be playing a good game of football, and I'd run in the middle of the pitch and pick the ball up and just run with it. And they'd be going, what are you doing? That's not how football's played. And I'm going, look, I'm having fun. Like, why aren't you? So I couldn't speak, I couldn't really communicate with them. Actually, I'm just kind of trying to play this game of football, you know, that I interpret as being the way that I'm playing it. So it then led me to kind of make two friends, because then they taught me how to play football. But it was very hard because obviously I couldn't talk, and I had to learn things like Macintosh and sign language so my mum would know. But I always praise my mum, because, you know, she has supported me and got me to where I am today, and if it weren't for her, you know, I wouldn't be where I am. But for instance, I could literally say to my mum, and she would know what I wanted. She'd be like, oh, he wants a biscuit. My nan would be like, how do you know? Like, he wants a toilet. You know, how do you know that, mum? So, you know, it was hard for my mum and dad, because when you've got a child and you know that there's something not quite right, or we say right, I shouldn't, because it's what is right, you know, come on. But when you know that something isn't, you know, they're not talking, they're not communicating at the age or the progress they should be making, you start to think, okay, what could it be? And that's kind of when I got my diagnosis. So I then went to school. Relationship with peers, I didn't really make a lot of friends till I was in year 5, so it was kind of really near the end of my school years. Relationship with teachers wasn't brilliant, because I don't think a lot of teachers back then really understood. I mean, my mum went in and said, I reckon he's got Asperger's, and she said, no, he's not got Asperger's, he's just naughty. So you know, that's the kind of thing that they were, yeah, my mum was facing. And then I started picking up quite bad OCD habits. I started washing my hands. I started thinking that everything I ate was poisonous, so I kept having to get people to take a bite out of my food before I ate it. Can you imagine that? Like a 6-year-old kid going, Mum, can you try this sandwich, because I think you've poisoned it, and I want you to take a bite first, because if you die and I'm alive, then I know I'm all right. Really weird to people, but it's how OCD can affect you. And then I developed tics as well, so I was on ADHD medicine, and that caused me to have the side effects of tics. So I started like rolling my eyes in the back of my head and twitching, and you know, nobody wants to sit with the kid that's twitching his head off, you know, at the lunch table. So that was another kind of added thing. So again, relationship with teachers didn't help, and I'd say the things that did help was there was one TA, and I really got on well with her, and the reason she was really good at her job was because so much about autism is the fact that you don't need to know everything about autism, but to support someone with autism, you need to know that individual, and you need to know what triggers them. You know, like for me, lights and sound doesn't really bother me, but there's plenty of people that I know with autism that would have to go into a room with headphones to get rid of the noise, and you know, the lights, they couldn't go out night clubbing because of the lights and the overload. But for me, a simple thing like, oh yeah, you know your desk was here, Max, well it's here today, that could be a big change for me. So understanding autism, again, you can know about all these things, but unless you understand the individual, it's really hard to be able to support them in the way, which is why I hate the statement, we have to treat everyone the same in schools. I think, yeah, you know, everyone needs to know, okay, you can't go up to someone and hit someone, that's not right, but at the same time, I wouldn't treat my friend how I treat my nan. You know, there's a different communication. You know, I couldn't go up to my nan and go, you know, want to go out tonight, nan, and hit the club. She'd think, what are you on about? I want to play bingo and, you know, have a chat with Dorothy who lives down the road. So, and that's my perception, is with teachers. You know, my teacher who isn't here today, but his name's John Reed, he works at Oxford Brookes University, but he once told me at school to write down 127. So in my book, I wrote down 127, and he thought, and then he just realised, oh, you know, okay, that's how he read it. So every time I'm on the train up to here, they go, coaches to 127, I just start laughing, because I'm thinking, but am I going to get out on the right one? But things like that, of course, and my teacher at one of the school, I was always worried, I was always anxious, so she created me this box, and she said anytime you get worried, just write down your thought and place it in the box. And I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. So I did it, and it really helped, because what I found is it made me realise that worries I had in the morning by break time was irrelevant, and it was an unnecessary worry. And it kind of taught me how to prioritise my worries and how to action them, because by the end of the day I'll go through the box and go, oh, what was I worried about that for? That's over with now. Oh, okay, that's helpful. So that was something that really helped, and she was probably one of the best teachers I had. But then the things that didn't help was the year 6 teacher. She grabbed the box and she said, you won't be needing this anymore, will you? And she threw it in the bin. So it's things like that, of the lack of understanding. You could have one great teacher that really knows everything and supports you in the way that you need supporting, and then that one teacher comes in and it just affects your whole school experience from there. So I then went and left primary, because it was then time for me to go to secondary school. But at the time, I don't think it's called a statement now, but at the time I had a statement. So basically the government got to pick what school I went to. So that will lead me on to my next bit. So I then went to this school, so my secondary school. There's me there, the hat is gone, the glasses are off, looking still a little bit, not really know where life's taken me at this point, I think. So this school was a school in Reading, and they had an ASD unit. So I thought this school might be good, because, you know, if they've got an ASD unit, they might be able to help me in the way that I need support. And I went there, and within 2 years they kicked me out. And what I found was, while I was there, was that they just wanted people with behaviour, you know, they wanted people with learning conditions, but they wanted people who behaved and went to their classes and got the grades, and the people that had disabilities that struggled, you know, the first sign of struggle, they'd be slowly kicked out and they were forced to go somewhere else, which is quite sad really, because that's kind of the opposite of how these units are meant to work. But I mean, I saw a good 6 people go through that time, and you know, again, it worries me, because it makes me think, where do these people go after? And that will kind of take me on to my next bit. But at the school, I didn't really have a good relationship with peers, because a lot of people knew I was in an ASD unit, which then meant I was more vulnerable to being picked on, which meant they would egg me on to do things that necessarily I didn't want to do, but I just wanted to fit in and make friends. So sometimes I'd make bad judgments and do those things. So one of the things I wanted was, I didn't want someone sat next to me in the class, because I knew that people would say, oh, he's got a problem, you know, because he's got someone sat next to him, and that would automatically put a target on my back, and I didn't want that. So I asked them if you know, if that was necessary, that I couldn't have someone sat next to me. And basically the first lesson I was there, they sat someone next to me, and you know, then everyone knew I had a condition. So things that helped there, I would say they took us on a PGL trip, and that was really fun, because normally I hate staying places, but this time I thought I'd do it. It's out of my comfort zone, so you know, I'll go and do it. And I really enjoyed it. And then what they'd done is they got me to edit the trip, so it really got me into video editing, and you know, got me to learn that. So that was some of the things that did help. And yeah, it's just unfortunate that really they didn't offer the support that they should have. So after I left that school, I then went to my second secondary school. Makes sense. That's me there. So I'm getting a bit older now, by the looks of it. And what can I say about this? This school was the best school I ever went to. It was a bit rough at times, because when I got there, you know, it wasn't just an autistic school, it was people that had gone through traumatic experiences. It was people who had very bad like anger issues. You know, there'd be probably 3 fights, you know, a day in the classroom. People brought knives in and drugs and all sorts, and it could be rough. And you know, a lot of the teachers got beat up on numerous amount of occasions, and it was a tough environment. You know, and I think the teachers kind of looked at me as in to say, why are you here? You know, because I was never violent, I was never, you know, bringing drugs in or knives. You know, was someone who unfortunately went to mainstream school and kind of got lost in the system. But that school taught me, if not anything, tolerance, what other people go through, and it made me more aware of, you know, what other people go through really, and what I have gone through compared to them. And they supported me again in the way that I needed support. Because the school was small, they could give that time to people who really needed it. And no one was ever left out, because there was no pressure. You know, it wasn't like, oh, they've got to get this, or they've got to get this, or this school needs this level of GCSEs at the end of the year. It was a really good school, and you know, it was the first school that I got on well with people. There was more teachers that understood the condition more than the people that didn't. There was only one teacher at that school who didn't really understand autism, and he turned around to me and he said, people that say you want to do anything in life are liars. And I then probably made a commitment to myself for the next 6 years that I'd prove him wrong. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. But only one teacher out of that whole school, you know, it was quite rare for me to have that, because every other school it's always been like, oh well, 3 people understand it, or 2, or maybe just 1, but this school everyone did, so it was really helpful. The only thing that didn't help about this school was they didn't offer GCSEs, so I had to leave the school without any GCSEs, which set me in bad stead kind of leaving, because then it was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? You know, best case scenario at this point is KFC if I'm lucky, or McDonald's, or so I was starting to panic at this point, thinking, what am I going to do with my life? So like, if there was more teachers like there were in that school, you know, a lot of the exclusion rate wouldn't be as high as it is. There'd be more people in employment, you know, and yeah, these teachers went through horrible things. You know, I used to see people get punched and they would come in the next day with a smile on their face, like it, you know, like it never happened. So, you know, it's nice to see that, instead of someone just go kick them out. You know, can't be dealing with that. It's so easy to do that, but so unnecessary. So I suppose what happened next. So I'd done some work experience. It was a little cafe in Oxford, and I have to say, guys, I hated it. It made me realise that I don't want to work in a cafe. It might be for some people, but for me, I hated the texture of cleaning and scrubbing the plates, and I just couldn't really do it. And it kind of taught me that that's something I don't want to do. I managed to get into college and done a media and IT course. I have to say, I didn't really enjoy it. I think, again, it's that independence, and you're kind of left on your own, and you know, you've not got that support around you to help you. You're kind of a deer in headlights, you know, and you've got to make new friends, you've got to get used to the environment, you've got to, you know, communicate with the new teachers, and it was just very difficult for me to do that, I think. Anyway, at this time I started thinking, I really want to do acting. So I went into Newbury, and there was a play that they were doing called The Passion. And I thought, okay, well, if I can just get a few lines in that, you know, I'll be happy. So I'd done the play in The Passion in Newbury. I then went on to do another role in Newbury for The Tragedy on Embourne Road. And then, of The Tragedy on Embourne Road, the makeup artist was doing the makeup for a E4 series called Glue, and she said they're looking for extras, and I thought, oh, okay, you know, that'd be really, really good if I can get into that. And while I was there was a rope separating the extras and the actors, and me being me, I just went over the rope, and I just pretended to be an actor that was joining next week, and I was just getting all this information in that I could, you know, how do you know who's legit, you know, who's a good agent to be with, who are you with, blah blah, and just getting all this information that I could. And I then spent a good year and a half just emailing every casting director I could find in England and Ireland, really. But while this was happening, I applied for a job, and it was out of 300 people. I turned up in a checkered shirt and chinos, everyone else turned up in a suit. I thought, I've not got this role. I've got conditions long as my arm, I've got no GCSEs, how can I get this role? And anyway, out of 300 people, I managed to get the role. On condition of passing the apprenticeship, I needed to get my level 2 in maths. That took me 7 times, but I got there. And off the back of that, I then won Apprentice of the Year for West Berkshire in 2016. And then finally I got my first big acting break, so I got an email from the casting director of Holby City to say come down for an audition. I was shaking. I remember saying to myself, don't shake now, shake afterwards, you know, just compose yourself. I was able to get that part. I then went on to go on filming for Doctors, and I've been on Doctors twice since then. Then done the ambassador work for the National Autistic Society, spoke about autism and employment on BBC Breakfast, The Right Stuff, and then done adverts for Ford, and then I've just filmed an advert for Santander as well. So I've since moved on from Thames, but I suppose, what is my message? Ignore people who say to you, you can't do anything. You know, I spent the last 6 years proving him wrong, so hopefully that he's seen some of my stuff and thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And if anything, you know, if you want to do anything, you can, but at the same time as well, you know, it's really important that events like this happen, because we can only get there really with the support with the people around us. You know, as I said, I wouldn't be here without my mum and dad and their support, and you know, I wouldn't be here giving me that first opportunity, BBC and Holby for giving me that first opportunity. So work hard, and hopefully, fingers crossed, your work will pay off, but never think that you're less capable or you can't do something that someone else can do, because you can, you know, and don't let anyone else tell you that, you know, you're just as capable. Yeah, you might need more support, you might need more training, but that's not something you need to change, that's something that the world needs to change, and, you know, hopefully we can all change that together. But that's my story anyway, and thank you for your time, and I suppose I've left just enough time for any questions really, but thank you.